My name is Jason, and I do YouTube full-time as an urban explorer and would constantly travel places around the world for content. I won't name the channel or business. I'm not getting paid for advertisement. I've been through some pretty rough situations on my adventures. Everything from being stuck in a cave to getting too close to a tornado. Despite it being somewhat dangerous at times, I still love what I do. This happened just recently at the beginning of the month, where a subscriber had requested I explore a certain cemetery located in Mexico. I've briefly heard of this cemetery before, and with spooky season around the corner, I didn't think it was a bad idea. That being said, I had flew to Mexico and stayed at a nearby hotel that was closest to the cemetery I'd be exploring. I've heard stories of this cemetery and how it's one of the most haunted places throughout Mexico. Stories about people getting this negative energy when visiting, all the way to people experiencing these abnormal symptoms. Hell, there was even one rumor on Reddit of someone claiming it was home to a satanic cult. I'd say you can't make this stuff up, but clearly you can. Anyway, the night came where I decided to explore the grave via live stream. I do streams anytime before filming a new video, just to give my audience an idea as to what they'll be seeing. I put on my shoes and a coat, as this was during the fall and it was chilly out, even for Mexico. I'm headed towards the cemetery with my iPhone and a light while live streaming on my channel. As I'm walking reading the chat, I then turn to my right and see what appeared to be a group of people in the cemetery. They were all huddled together in a circle, loudly whispering something in Spanish with a small light in the middle. Now, my stepmother is Puerto Rican, so while I understand a fair bit of Spanish, I don't speak it. If I'm correct, I believe they were talking about an ancient Mexican ritual. It's basically an old practice to summon dark spirits from the dead, or so I heard. The second I see them, I duck down behind a small stone wall as I didn't want to be seen. By some stroke of luck, they somehow didn't see or hear me, and I wasn't going to increase the chances. I take a peek over the wall and see that they're still in a circle talking to each other. After waiting for some time while chat was practically begging me to go over there, I finally decided to do it. However, that's when I noticed that the people who were there had left. I take a look throughout the cemetery just to be sure no one else was here, and when I didn't see anyone, I took that chance. I run over to the area where they were and begin filming the scenery. What I saw nearly chilled me to the bone. There were these small sticks on the ground, each of them put perfectly in a circle. In the center of this circle was what I could only describe as a small voodoo doll. There was also another bundle of sticks put together in a sort of pyramid with a faint smoke coming out of it, which was probably the aftermath of a fire. I could only assume that this was the light I had seen when I got there. The whole chat on stream went wild, telling me not to touch anything and to get out of there. And I was just about to do that when I look up ahead and see a face peer out from behind one of the graves. I yell out a hey, and whoever it was goes back behind the grave as I run after him. However, the second I got there, whoever it was gone. That's when I book it back to my apartment, hoping nobody was following me. The weird thing about this was the person's face. It looked like a person, I guess, but there was something about their eyes that was just off-putting. Because it was dark out, I couldn't really make out the full features, but I didn't care. I thankfully made it back safely with nothing else happening. I, of course, canceled the video and had uploaded the livestream instead, which was unfortunately taken down. Nothing has happened since, but I still wonder what that cemetery was really being used for.
When I was around 28, I moved out of my parents' house and into my own apartment in the suburbs of California. Life was kind of like what you'd expect for California. It rained a lot and was brutally hot during the summer months. This didn't really bother me, as I mostly stayed indoors and never really had a reason to spend time outside, until a night where I was going through something dreadfully awful. I had just broken up with my now ex-boyfriend over some problems we'd been having. I won't go into exactly what it was, but let's just say life can be full of disappointments. Feeling down and depressed, I put on my shoes and decide to go outside to take a walk to just keep to myself. So there I am, walking down the sidewalk, reflecting on life, when I walk past the local graveyard and just turn to look at it. I really didn't know why, but there was something about it that just felt peaceful. It was creepy, but at the same time, I felt at peace, wondering how life is like after we leave this world. Suddenly, that's when I thought I could see someone trying to hide behind one of the tombstones. At first, I thought it could have been security patrolling the area, and with that, I was about to leave. However, as I took a step back, I came to the realization that it wasn't security at all, but rather some woman who I'd never seen before. She seemed normal, maybe mid-30s, wore casual clothing, but was a bit off as she kept on looking up every few seconds. She spots me and slowly walks over to me and asks what I was doing out here. I tell her that I was just taking a walk, as I had just ended a relationship with my ex. I then ask what she was doing in a cemetery past hours. She looks around for a few seconds and completely ignores my question and starts questioning me about what I was doing. Mind you, the cemetery was surrounded by a large gate, so that meant she had to have purposely gone over. In the end, I just assumed someone close to her had passed and went to visit them. Not wanting to pry and too tired to care, I tell her that I have to head home and to have a nice night. She then stops talking and just watched me as I leave the cemetery and down the street to my apartment. Mid-walk, she then stops me and says something that made my heart drop. I hope Cindy feels better. My blood ran cold as she said this. For context, Cindy is my little sister's name, who still lives with my parents in a different state. She suffers from Crab disease, which is a rare metabolic disorder mainly found in children. It's basically when the body builds up various lipids and oil that can destroy brain cells. She's been responding well to possible treatment and therapy. I have no idea how this woman knew my sister, never mind her condition. I walked back to my apartment, not saying a word to anyone. In fact, I just told myself that I'd forget about it soon and to just go on with life. It wasn't until 2 weeks later, when a colleague and I were talking near that cemetery, when she began to tell me her story about a woman who's always there. It came to a point in her story where I immediately realized that she was talking about the same woman who I had seen. Apparently, her name was Sarah Lopez, and she tried to lure my friend to go into the cemetery with her to help her find her dog. Obviously, my colleague wasn't stupid, as the situation was basically a whole red flag. At one point, we go to the front entrance of the cemetery and inform the security guard working at the front about the woman named Sarah Lopez, who kept on trespassing into the cemetery. The security guard gets this confused look on her face, and after a few seconds, her eyes went wild and says something that still haunts me to this day. "Honey, what do you mean? Sarah Lopez died 10 years ago from a car crash. How could you have seen her?" That creeped us out for weeks, and we never returned to the cemetery again. Throughout my life, I've never believed in the paranormal, but I still have no explanation for this.
This is a short story about a time when my parents went out of town and took a trip to the Florida Keys. They were staying at this 4-star hotel for their anniversary for a week, just to have time to themselves and create memories. One day, they were walking along a small cemetery when they see an older-looking man cleaning the graves. He looked as if he worked there, and they gave him a wave. However, the man didn't even acknowledge them and just continued to clean. My parents didn't think anything of it and just brushed it off as rude and went on with their day. After that, they enjoyed a nice afternoon by the beach and even had a nice dinner afterwards. Once nightfall hit, my parents called it a night, and that's when my mom goes to sleep. For whatever reason, my dad couldn't and went down to the lobby. At the lobby, he spoke to some guy he had never met before, and that's when he brought up the man from the grave in conversation. The person he was speaking to then told him something that really spooked him. A few years ago, a guy who had worked for the cemetery had died from a heart attack while on the job. There had been multiple reports of guests seeing him, only to get ignored when they tried to initiate contact. That one scared both my parents out for months.